everybody reacts in weird ways, theoretically, after tragedies, but there's starting to develop a bit of a pattern in how the right is reacting to literally anything that happens to this country that they don't like or that they don't want you to think they might be responsible for. So here is Representative Andy Ogles in the immediate aftermath of the loss of nearly 70 lives.
I think you have to look at this with eyes wide open, see what happened. Human error, was it some sort of equipment failure? Did DEI play a role in this type of thing? So I think you look at it, you go into it with, again, eyes wide open and make sure that something like this never happens.
Drink, everyone. I don't know, what were we, 5 minutes after the crash? And he immediately said DEI, both drink because of the bingo we're playing and also just generally drink because it's the only way you're gonna get through this time. And so Andy Ogles has discovered what a lot on the right has discovered, which is they now have a 3-letter loophole that in the wake of anything bad happening, they can go on TV and say, did a black person do this? Because they're kind of thinking, maybe a black person's responsible for this. That's what they did. I mean, sure, he could be implying that a trans person's responsible. They have a lot of hate for a lot of different groups. But now anything that happens, anything, wildfires, terror attacks, crashes in the sky,
this is the response.
Because it might have been a black person that was responsible for this. And look, I'm giving this to you in the real time that I absorbed it. So I saw Andy Ogles and I'm like, we have to talk about this because this is absolutely insane. But it's not just Andy Ogles. Donald Trump did his stupid little address and he talked about the possibility that could be DEI as well. And so look, if Joe Biden's president, when something like this happens, it's Joe Biden's fault. Now, if he's in charge, if he's the president, it's probably a black or brown person, maybe a trans person, maybe somebody in a wheelchair could be. I mean, something woke was responsible for this. It is absolutely sickening and also sickeningly predictable that they would immediately turn to this. And get used to it, everybody, because for 4 years, you're not gonna be able to get through one day without something being blamed on DEI. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it's what happens when they don't care about our human lives. They don't care about people. They don't care about governing. It is the most like, look over here, squirrel ass mentality, total distraction. I mean, you can't get that more distilled than when something like this happens. How unserious Republicans are about, again, protecting us is this incredible like avian disaster. Aerial disaster happens, not avian. Yeah, I caught myself there. An aerial disaster happens.
There for a second, but yeah.
There's gonna be avian disasters, but that's the other thing. Donald Trump seems like a great president when everything is fine. There's no problems, there's no accidents, there's no natural disasters. There's no airline crashes. Everything is fine and normal for like, I don't know, when does that occur? Maybe 4 hours in a day. Sure, there might not be anything on fire. But as soon as something happens, which inevitably it will because it's a large country, and there has to be a president, there has to be a leader, Donald Trump is a tweeting little turd. That's all he is, and that's all he's good for. And so, John, this is just wild. It's like, if there was a woman or a black person who was manning any of these, aircrafts, like, is that gonna make you feel better? If we purge them from, being pilots, you don't allow women to fly planes and black people to be in the military. Is that gonna make it feel better? If this were all white people responsible, all men who were responsible, then is that just a tragedy? That's just he was a great guy. That's some mass shooter level stuff. It's just like,
that's how it works, Francesca.
That's how it works. And you can look in very recent history, last point, when the bridge in Baltimore collapsed. Do you remember this, right? A massive shipping container, like whatever, that massive ship.
Container ship. Yeah.
Container ship, thank you. You've got words, I've got passion. Between the two of us, we make it work. No, so the ship, the container ship hits, one of the pillars in this bridge, and it all collapses. And the next day, everyone is blaming Joe Biden. Why didn't Joe Biden stop this? What did Joe Biden do? Our infrastructure is crumbling under Biden. But this happened, and it's like, nah, it must be one woman or one trans. That's probably what it was. Now, neither response is correct, but again, they don't care. They don't care about accuracy.
Yeah, and I love that they can say that Biden like degraded our capacity. They're destroying our capacity intentionally. They're dismantling our government and our country. Oh, what do you know? There are gonna be disasters. And I wanna read just one more thing. So Professor Tom Schaller, who I'm not familiar with prior to this, he's professor of political science at the University of Maryland. 12 hours before the crash, he wrote this: an FAA employee I know confirms agency already lacks sufficient air traffic controllers. The so-called buyouts and other attacks on federal employees won't help. Remember that fact when the flight delays, crashes commence, and Trumpers start falsely blaming DEI or Biden. He wrote that less than half a day before it turned out to be true. Not just the crash, but they're instantly gonna turn to the DEI. And it is just wild to me that they now have a thing where they can just say, black people aren't qualified for jobs. They're just not. They do it, their elected officials do it. They do it in the media. Charlie Kirk had his whole thing about like when he walks in, he sees a black pilot in the cockpit, he gets uncomfortable or whatever. They have found like, you can say racist things, as racist as you want, you just have to use an acronym. And then it's totally cool. It's totally cool. Members make a difference here at TYT. You help make the show happen, and we see you in the chat with your loyalty badge. Click the join button to become a member today.